My name's Angela Singer and I'm an artist who works quite often with recycled old taxidermy, and that means that I'm not a taxidermist. I don't actually prepare skinned animals and stuff them. What I do is use old taxidermy that people usually give to me or I'm able to obtain in ways that don't require me spending a lot of cash, and what I do with the taxidermy is try and use it to make artworks about the death of the animal, and so if I possibly can I try and find out how the animal happened to die, and if it's from an old collection then there's quite often records of the hunt and what happened during the hunt and so on. The look of the animal really does quite often come out of the story of how the animal died or how it was hunted. So the works that have things spilling, let's say from the gut cavity, quite often that'll be where I found out that the animal was perhaps not dead when it was strung up and it was bled out, or it might be that it was poisoned and had, like possums, where they're poisoned with 1080 and they have this really painful death and sort of foaming at the mouth and bleeding and so on. So I'm trying to put that into the work, and then the way that they're displayed, originally that came out of wanting to show them in a way like where the hunter perhaps will string up an animal after it's killed, and I wanted to have them strung up on the walls within the gallery, but it actually led to them looking crucified, and so now I'm quite often asked if there's a religious, sort of martyred theme coming through in the work, and I think there is, but it isn't actually intentional as in being religious iconography. When I first started out working with old taxidermy, I thought that perhaps I was trying to get through an animal rights message with the work, but I've actually changed my mind over time in that instead of trying to deliver an overt message, what I want the viewer to do is to think about the work and come to what they think about. I'm trying to say, themselves, to use their brain and to think about it and to get the point. I think that if I deliver written information with the artwork, then I think that pushes people away, and I also don't think I get an honest reaction to the work. Because I was politically involved in the animal rights movement, then having an animal theme was important. The use of recycled taxidermy didn't come until about 1995, and I was in two minds about using it because these are animal bodies, and when people are confronted, or when people view animal imagery and then a representation of an animal, they're not confronted. People overall I think like animals, but when they step into an art gallery and not expecting to be confronted by an animal body, that's a different thing, and you can get this repulsion, especially when the animal's been altered and the viewer has to question why it's been altered, or and that's why some of my works have on them jewels and other elements that are attractive. So you get this attraction and repulsion, this push-pull, and it's trying to draw the viewer into not being repulsed by the artwork. I usually do start, the starting point, if I know the animal's life story, or in this case it's usually the death story, if I know that, then I will sit and think about that, and I will do sketches on how I might portray that, and from those sketches I'll usually pin them up while I'm working and look at them, and sometimes the finished work will look similar to what I've sketched, but quite often it will look nothing like it because I'm working with lots of different objects, lots of mixed media, and the work will evolve, and it's quite good to have lots of different media around, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I quite often work with beads and buttons and craft materials within the work. Having a political theme with my art, I think I face what most people face who are artists, and that is that there are fashions within art, and political art, I think, is coming back into fashion. The last Venice Biennale had a lot of political art, and so, you know, then there's more interest in that particular art. There's been a trend for ironic art and art industry in-jokes to be very, very popular. That's not really where my work sits, and I wouldn't expect it to be included in an exhibition that you know, had that kind of a theme to it. I have found that my work is perhaps quite well received recently overseas, and I think that that's that swing towards political art, but also the popularity of art looking at the animal. Don't be afraid of working with art materials that make you feel uncomfortable. I don't always feel particularly comfortable having to take a hacksaw to a deer, or, you know, a hammer to one of these birds in order to make the artwork I do. It makes me quite uncomfortable, but I think that you can make some pretty good art by working with materials that challenge you, and if you feel like you're expressing your truth or something that you need to say, then just go for it and work through the discomfort.